Chairman, we're now live.
Thank you very much, and good morning and welcome to all. Also welcome to our viewers watching live on YouTube channel Hillingdon, London. Details of the business to be considered today is shown on the agendas, copies which are available in the room, and it is also accessible under the live broadcast. For those present in the room and intending to speak, please note that you will be filmed and any statements you make will be recorded and made public. For those solely observing in the room today, you may wish to know that the camera is angled away from the public gallery where you are sitting. A reminder to anyone speaking today that your voice will only be audible online if your microphone is switched on. Fire alarm. We are not expecting a fire drill today, so if the fire alarm goes off, please follow officers to the fire exits and out of the building to the designated meeting points. For those in the room, please switch off any mobile phone devices before the meeting starts or put them on silent. Declarations of interest. Please ensure that you identify which items you have an interest in, state whether your interest is pecuniary or non-pecuniary, and give the reasons that you have an interest. Members need not declare an interest in any item on the agenda where they have already listed this interest on their register of interest. Furthermore, you do not need to declare an interest just because you are, for example, a ward councillor. Before we start, I'm not going to declare an interest as such, apart from to say that I'm aware of this shop. I have visited it maybe twice or three times in the last 10 years to buy the odd can of soda or maybe a packet of cigarettes. We will now start the meeting and go through the order of proceedings as laid out on page 1. And to that, before we start, I'd also like to introduce the rest of the subcommittee panel. They are made up of myself, Councillor Simon Arnold. I'm also the chairman of this meeting. To my right, I have Councillor Colleen Sullivan and Councillor John Morse. To the left, we have Elizabeth Penny, Democratic Services Officer, and Chantal MacLeod, Legal Officer. I'm not going to spend time going around the room and introducing everybody, but maybe when you first speak, if you'd just like to make yourselves known and what your name is and who you are. So we will start off proceedings this morning with apologies for absence.
No absence, Chairman. Sorry, no apologies, Chairman.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. No. To confirm that all items of business will be considered part 1, is that correct?
That's correct, Chairman.
And are there any matters that have been notified in advance or as urgent?
No, there are none. There are none.
Thank you very much. We will then go on to the order of proceedings, and the first person to speak is the licensing officer. Mark, if you'd like to introduce this case to us, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Mark McDermott, the licensing case officer. Good morning, everyone. You've all been provided with the full report and the supporting documents, and I would like to take this opportunity to summarise the finer points of the report. The purpose of today's hearing is to review the premises licence for Spend and Save at 242 to 244 Yeading Lane, Hayes, UB4 9AX, a convenience store with an off-licence following receipt of an application made by the Trading Standards Service on the 16th of July 21. The last date for representations on this was the 13th of August. The application was made following the seizure of a quantity of illegal cigarettes, tobacco, Viagra and canisters of nitrous oxide at the premises as detailed in the application, and relates to the failure to uphold the prevention of crime and disorder objective. Representations were received from the Metropolitan Police and Licensing Authority as detailed in my report that support the application. My recommendation is for the committee to consider revoking the licence in line with the Trading Standards Service request, but this is a decision for the committee, and I would invite the committee to determine the application, please. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mark. Do any of the councillors have a question for the licensing officer? No, John, Colleen? No. In which case, we will carry... Sorry, yes.
think it's clear from the report that the items were seized from a van that was parked by the premises.
I was about to say the
clarity.
same thing. I think the councillors have noted the fact that it was in a van outside the premises, not a van inside the premises. Thank you. We will move on now to the applicant, who I believe is Trading Standards. So that's you, Kieran.
Good morning. My name is Kieran Sayan. I'm a Trading Standards Officer for the London Borough of Hillingdon's Trading Standards Service. The application for review has been submitted by the service and is detailed as per Appendix 1, which I believe is on page 15 of the document pack. It has been submitted by the service in the support of the licensing objective, the prevention of crime and disorder, as stated at the top of page 18. On 29th of September 2020, following receipt of intelligence, Trading Standards Service led on inspection visits within the borough. The operation was led by Trading Standards and we were accompanied by a tobacco detection dog plus handler. The purpose of these visits was to conduct inspections at premises where intel suggested illicit sales were being made. The sniffer dogs were used to identify concealments of tobacco. One of the premises visited on the day was a shop trading a spend and save at 242 to 244 Yeading Lane, Hayes UB4 9AX. Time of entry was 12:05. At the time of visit, Mr. Gurnam Lagani, who's the current manager and a former director of the company, was found to be working behind the till. He was assisted by a member of staff, a lady named Gurpreet Kaur. This lady is not to be confused with Mrs. Gurpreet Kaur Lagani, who is present here today and is the licence holder, so two different individuals. Mrs. Gurpreet Kaur Lagani, who's the licence holder, was not present during the visit at any point. The premises was inspected with the tobacco detection dogs, and a scent was picked up from a Vauxhall van, registration LO62 XTD. It was parked at the rear of the premises. Mr. Gurnam Singh Lagani indicated that the van belonged to a charity and had nothing to do with the business. Keys for the van were found hanging at the rear of the shop door, and entry was effected. Paperwork inside the van confirmed that it belonged to Mr. Sarbjeet Singh Lagani, who subsequently attended the premises and confirmed that it was indeed his van. Inside the van were found a significant quantity of tobacco and other products which were seized. Mr. Sarbjeet Singh Lagani stated that he was given the tobacco by an itinerant trader and he had no intention of selling it. It was simply being kept in the van. Mr. Sarbjeet Singh Lagani was reminded of the fact that on a previous visit in March 2019, he had been issued a written warning following the seizure of 10 packets of cigarettes. He had signed to confirm that no further actions of the same nature would continue at the premises. He acknowledged that he had received the warning that had been issued to him. The total quantities of goods that were seized found from within the van are detailed in page 19 of the document pack. So the total quantities of goods seized were 9,180 cigarettes, 3,370 grams of hand-rolling tobacco, 2,653.5 grams of oral tobacco, 110 tablets of Viagra, and 576 cream charges, nitrous oxide. This was all found in the van. I would like at this point just to draw the committee's attention to the fact that when Trading Standards conduct inspection visits, we have noted that the way in which shop premises operate when they deal with illicit goods is they tend not to store those goods on the premises themselves. They tend to be located either in a flat above the premises or in a lock-up unit to the rear of the premises, or in this case in a van, just for information purposes. Samples of tobacco were sent to the respective brand holders and confirmations were received as to whether they were counterfeit or non-duty paid. Details of that, again, is on page 19 of the pack alongside the quantities. So I've indicated there how many cigarettes that were counterfeit, how many are non-duty paid, and the same with the rest of the stuff and what the situation has been with that. Due to the COVID pandemic, we were delayed in sending samples and we were delayed in obtaining confirmations. Those confirmations have since been received, statements have been received from the trademark holders, and that is what was reflected in whether it's confirmed counterfeit or non-duty paid. Mr. Sarabjit Singh Lagani has been invited to an interview under caution. He responded via Mr. Panchal, who called me and asked that this be done in writing. Subsequently, I have been contacted by, I believe, yourself, another individual that you have assigned to deal with the interview under caution for Mr. Lagani. Yeah? So, I'm in the process of getting that done. I want to draw the committee's attention again to a couple of points. I appreciate that in relation to the licence for this premises, it is Mrs. Gurpreet Kaur Lagani who is the licence holder. From a trading standards perspective, when we go and do visits, there are issues that we record under trading standards offences, which can lead to trading standards further enforcement action, which is why we are interviewing the director of the limited company associated with the business. But also because we are a responsible authority, we are able to submit a review for the licence. So just to clarify what our position is, there is a limited company associated with this business. The company is called GS Spend and Save Limited. The director currently in place for this business is Mr. Sarabjit Singh Lagani. He is the individual who has signed the warning that was accompanying the review application, which I believe, what page is that on, sorry, Lois? 35. On page 35, following previous visits. From a trading standards perspective, because he is the legal entity responsible for the business, he is the person that was issued the warning, and he is the person that signed that warning, and he was reminded of that fact at the time of this visit last year, and he agreed that he was aware of that fact. When we look at the directors involved in the business, whilst Mr. Sarabjit Singh Lagani is the only current director in place, the previous directors for this business have been Mr. Gurnam Singh Lagani, who at the time of visit indicated he was the manager, and a previous director also is Mrs. Gurpreet Kaur Lagani, who is the current licence holder. Therefore, it is our understanding that they are all involved in the business. So in concluding, during the course of the visit by trading standards, significant quantities of illicit goods were seized within or around the premises, including the van. The service is of the opinion that the conduct by the business operators of Spend and Save demonstrates a flagrant disregard of the law, which raises questions as to whether the business is being managed in accordance with the licensing objectives. Further, I would quote the Section 182 Guidance 11.27, which states that there is certain criminal activity that may arise in connection with licensed premises which should be treated particularly seriously. These are the use of licensed premises for sale and storage of smuggled tobacco and alcohol. In closing, I invite the committee to consider the service recommendation that the licence be revoked. I would also add the reason that we are pushing for a revocation on this occasion is because we like to act reasonably. We like to give a business an opportunity to come into compliance, which is why on the previous occasion the business was issued a warning. And if you read the details noted within the warning, we advise Mr. Lagani that if we are to return to the premises and find the same level of illegal activity, that he could be liable to facing a licence review and or prosecution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that presentation. That was incredibly thorough. I did have a bunch of questions, but you answered most of them during your presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to my councillor colleagues. Councillor Morse, have you got any questions?
Not at present, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Sullivan, any questions?
As you say, questions were answered.
Questions were answered within the presentation. Thank you very much. In which case, we will move on to the next part. I don't believe we have any responsible... sorry, Liz. So we're now going to go on to the responsible authorities, which is PC Butler and Lois King. I don't know which one of you would like to start. Lois.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Lois King. I'm a Principal Licensing Officer. I'm representing the Licensing Authority as a responsible authority. Good morning, everybody. The Licensing Authority would like to reiterate that we are fully supportive of the Trading Standards Service application to review the premises licence for Spend and Save, which was submitted on the 16th of July 2021. Having read the review application and the supporting information, there are some concerns in relation to the prevention of crime and disorder licensing objective. As you've already heard from my colleague in Trading Standards, that during an intelligence-led inspection of the premises on the 29th of September 2020, Trading Standards officers seized illicit tobacco products, so cigarettes, hand-rolling tobacco and oral tobacco, medicinal products, Viagra and cream chargers, so canisters of nitrous oxide, which had been found in a van at the rear of the premises, the keys to which were found on the premises. A number of the tobacco products were counterfeit and non-duty paid. My understanding is that this amounts to breaches of Trading Standards legislation, and which are therefore criminal in nature, thus undermining the crime prevention objective. Further, I would also reiterate Section 11.27 of the Licensing Act 2003, Section 182 guidance, which states that there is certain criminal activity which may arise in connection with the licensed premises which should be treated particularly seriously, and amongst others, these are the use of the licensed premises for the sale or storage of smuggled tobacco and alcohol. It is extremely disappointing to note that this seizure has taken place despite Mr. Subjit Singh Lagani having been issued with and acknowledging a warning letter following a similar incident, albeit I understand smaller in terms of the quantity of tobacco, in March 2019. I should say that I have undertaken a compliance check at the premises on the 10th of August 2021, and you will see from the premises licence, which you'll find in Appendix 4 on page 29, that there are little by way of Annex 2 conditions on the licence. So you will see from my representation letter in Appendix 3 on page 25, which does indicate that there would appear to have been an attempt by the premises licence holder to put some measures in place to promote the licensing objectives, but that there was still room for improvement. But these measures were not actually on the licence. Like I said, there's only one Annex 2 condition on their licence currently. So like I said, we are fully supportive of the review application. Trading Standards have requested that consideration be given to revoking the premises licence, and ultimately that is a decision for the licensing subcommittee to make. I felt it might be helpful that in the event that the committee be minded not to revoke the licence, I've included some appropriate relevant conditions that could be attached to the licence in order to fully promote the licensing objectives going forward, in order to help the committee should that be required during your deliberations. That concludes my submission on behalf of the Licensing Authority in respect of this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Moss.
I'll ask you a question. You're obviously an experienced training officer. Would you regard this as a significant find? Because, in your experience, is this, the amount of material found, do you regard this as significant?
I'm just going to have a look, just refresh my memories of the quantities. Obviously, trading standards tend to deal with these sorts of operations, and I've never necessarily been involved in them. But, you know, with 9,180 cigarettes, as you can see from the report, and also I think the value was £5,500. So it's on page 19 and page 20 of the report. That compared to what was found previously, it's only a small amount. That amount seems to have grown in the time between March 2019, which I think the previous visit was made, and now. So that's a sizable quantity, I would imagine, yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted the confirmation.
Councillor Sullivan? Thank you, in which case we will move on. I think our next person to speak is PC Dave Butler.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Chairman, committee members. Good morning, everyone. I'm PC Dave Butler, and I'm a police licensing officer for the London Borough of Hillingdon. I'm purely here today in my role as one of the responsible authorities. I don't provide any evidential any evidence in relation to the initial find. However, my role is purely in a supporting role under the crime and prevention. We are in support of this review for the premises licence of Spend and Save, as we know, located at 242 to 244 Yeading Lane and Hayes. And as a result of the visit with regard to trading standards on the 29th of September 2020, led also by a tobacco detection dog, and a subsequent total of illicit goods seized to the value of £5,477 and 50 pence, most certainly a substantial find. This is a substantial seizure, and combined with a previous find and subsequent warning letter, highlights the use of the premises for illegal activity, resulting in a blatant disregard for the law. Us as the police licensing team would like to support trading standards in their review of the premises licence, and we fully support the recommendation that the premises licence be revoked under the Prevention of Crime and Disorder. That concludes my representations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, PC Butler. I'm going to ask you, if I may, the same question that John Morse just asked to Lois King, and that is, do you consider this, I mean, you used the word substantial in your presentation there, is this, for what you've experienced as a police officer, is this a huge amount, a small amount, is average for these kind of seizures?
Yes, we have in the past accompanied trading standards on such operations as multi-agency operations. And this, in my opinion, and it is only my opinion as a police licensing officer, is a substantial find. Yes.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions? Okay, thank you. In which case, we now move on to representation from the licence holder. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. I take on board a lot of your points. And to that end, I'm going to ask some questions. But before I ask a question of you, I actually want to turn the question back over to the licensing team. In the submission that we just heard, why wasn't any investigation done behind the till or CCTV camera evidence requested? Whichever one.
On the day of visit, the whole premises was inspected, so behind the till was inspected. Whilst it's not detailed because nothing was found there, it actually says a full inspection of the premises was done. The premises is quite large. There's a number of storage rooms that are part of the premises. At the rear of the premises is also an ISO container. And the previous visit when I did in March 2019, that is where the tobacco was found that was subject to the warning being issued. As I've said before, it is not uncommon for people not to store the illegal goods immediately behind the till. Behind the till is always examined, the sniffer dogs are sent behind there, the goods behind the tobacco gantry and the alcohol display is examined. Nothing was picked up and therefore nothing was stated in relation to that. We as a standard, we don't tend to in trading standards request CCTV footage. I know it's not a requirement on the licence for them to have CCTV. It is accessible by the police, so the police can access that. We generally don't ask for that. When trading standards visits are done, they are everything that's stated in here is on the basis of the visit that was done on the 29th of September 2020. No further visits were then done by us because when it comes to trading standards, we are covered by the Consumer Rights Act, where we are required to give 2 days advance notice in advance of conducting a visit. To do so would tip off the trader that we are coming, and therefore if there are any illicit goods, they could then conceal them or remove them from the premises. When it comes to the inspection that was done on this day, by the nature of the inspection, we are not required to give advance notice because it would tip them off as to why they're there, as to why we're coming there. The representative has indicated that there's been 10 months delay. I appreciate that there's been a delay. It has taken time for me to get results back. I understand that's not convenient for this process, and I accept that. But what I would suggest to the committee is, again, when trading standards put these recommendations in, they're based on what our circumstances were as of the 29th of September. Even when we take a prosecution case, we do it on basis on what happened on the day of. In those 10 months, I would suggest to the licence holder and the representative, you've had an opportunity to bring the business into compliance. So if the committee feels that in that time period, where trading standards have not submitted a review and they've come through now, the licence holder has had an opportunity to try and bring the business into compliance. And if the committee feels that the licence holder, who is present here today, can satisfy you to the fact that then business since that date has now been brought into compliance, and you feel minded not to do a revocation, that is then down to the committee. Within the Trading Standards Service, we take a very strong stance when it comes to illegal goods and illegal tobacco because it's an issue throughout London and a very big issue within this borough. And so, yes, we do take a strong stance against it. I appreciate that that's not going to be what the representative and the licence holder would want, but I would agree with him. There has been a 10-month period, so if you are minded and if you feel that the licence holder can satisfy you, that they are now in compliance, then you could opt to go for a suspension with conditions, as Lois has pointed out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to say on the 10 months, obviously this has been extraordinary times, so I don't think the committee is going to look at that either way particularly. As you yourself have said, it's any other time, and we hadn't been in these circumstances, I think a lot more weight would be placed on the 10 months. Yes, please. I'm going to go to councillors. Got any questions? Councillor Morse.
Pick up a point by your representative. Have you ever got the capacity to get tapes from the surveillance cameras to look at, because it seemed an enormous task to actually. Have you ever done it? Requested them, and and do we? How would we have the capacity to look at all these recordings? Because there'd be hours and hours of recording. I don't know. I mean,
are you talking about looking at tapes? Not of this premises, but of any premises.
Basically, is there anything unique about this? This is the question I'm asking.
As a general policy, trading standards do not request CCTV footage.
Okay.
Councillor Sullivan? Not a moment. Mr. Panchal, did you want to speak? No? Have you got anything else to add? Thank you. I just want to make the point of saying that no licensing committee ever likes to revoke a licence. We go through constant training. In fact, we had a training session last week, and we are told that revocation is always a last resort. Having said that, we also have to look at the criminality of any case, and our residents, they expect us to deal with criminality harshly. So that's all I'm going to say there. Councillors, any questions from you to any of the parties present?
Is Mr. Logani not the licence holder any longer?
No, he hasn't been since last March.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Morse? No. Has anybody got any questions for anybody? I want to make sure that everybody has had an opportunity to say exactly what they want. I don't know if you would like to make a statement at all. Answer that, no? Okay, we're going to go to closing remarks. I think you just made closing remarks. If you'd like to make another closing remark, you may at this point. Would anybody else like to make any closing remarks? No? Okay. I'd like to thank everyone today for coming. We will now go into some private deliberations. Sorry about that. We will now go into a private deliberation and a decision will be made. You're more than happy for you to to stay if you want, but it may take us a couple of hours, but someone from the licensing or democratic services team will contact you with the outcome later on today. As I said, you can wait outside while we deliberate and come back in. We can give you the decision there, or you can go away and we can contact you afterwards. It's completely up to you. And then obviously the decision will be published and sent to you formally within 7 days. On that basis, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today. Thank you all for your representation and the time you've given. And for now, I will close this meeting until we re-adjourn with a result. Thank you.